Mario and Luigi Brothership was a game I was very excited to play ever since it was announced, due to the fact that Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story was the first RPG I ever played. And a few weeks before the game came out, I heard rumors that Brothership was on par, if not better than Bowser's Inside Story. I then heard that IGN rated the game a 5 out of 10, and it made me nervous, because we have not had a game in this series since the remake to Bowser's Inside Story in 2019, and the last original game was Paper Jam in 2015. And I wanted the game to be good so we would get more games in the series in the future. Mario and Luigi Brothership takes place in the land of Concordia. Originally, it was one big continent, but has been broken up, causing the land to be split into islands, which you can explore. There are a lot of different islands. You have islands made up entirely out of sand, you have fire and ice islands, and you have rainforest islands, and so much more. Some of these islands have smaller bits of other islands, for example buildings, to show they were once connected. Furthermore, certain islands might have unique ways of showing if there are hidden blocks there. Usually they'll just be shimmering where they're located, but if it's raining, then you'll see rain falling off, or you'll see snow sitting on top for snow. There are also islets, which are smaller islands, and usually they're optional, and just contain a small challenge or something for a side quest, but they're really fun to explore, and you can usually get some neat stuff for them, or just a bunch of money. There is only one island I don't particularly like though, and it's just a giant maze. It still looks cool though, as well as brings back a variation of an old enemy. Speaking of which, this is the first Mario and Luigi game that is fully in 3D, and although we have seen a couple of things in 3D in the series, mostly being the giant fights, Mega Thwonk, and whatever this is, they never really did anything else with 3D, and in this game, it looks really good. All the Mushroom Kingdom characters looking like they're taken straight out of the box and concept art from the past games, but just put in 3D. They even have some returning enemies and new variations of enemies from past games. On top of that, the characters are all themed around plugs, which fits in with story themes, and they all look really cool as well. You even have some of the main villains being the Extension Corps being different types of plugs, with 10 being an aux cord, Shun being a VGA connector, and X being an Ethernet cable, which was the only one I could not figure out by myself and had to look up. On top of that, every character has their own personalities and character traits, some of which are partially shown in their design, and it makes them all fun to interact with. However, there was one character in this game I was kind of worried about. Before I talk about Starlow and why I'm worried about her being in this game, I want to go over a bit of backstory for her. She was first introduced in Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story as a Star Sprite, a new race in the Mario and Luigi universe, sent to help with a disease that is spread in the Mushroom Kingdom, but ends up acting as a guide for Mario and Luigi, as a replacement for Stuffwell from Partners in Time. She worked well in that game, and she helped mostly with tutorials, maybe a bit too much, and served as a voice for Mario and Luigi so they could communicate with Bowser without giving away who they were using the alias Chippy. She also made fun of Luigi a bit too much, but Luigi did not deserve that. Anyway, after Inside Story, Starlow heads back to the other Star Sprites, and then in the next game, Mario and Luigi Dream Team, where the brothers are invited to an island resort, they meet up once again with Starlow, as she was sent to be a representative of the Star Sprites. However, in that game we also get a new partner named Dreambert, the Prince of the Pillow Kingdom, a species thought to have gone extinct. And now Starlow's role here is mostly just to watch Luigi when Mario goes into the Dream World, because Prince Dreambert usually can't stay outside the Dream World, and sometimes he acts as something used to make the portal to the Dream World. However, she's still good in that game because her character bounces off of Dreambert's character pretty well. However, after Dream Team is where the problem starts. The next game in the series is Paper Jam. And in this game, as soon as you meet up with Mario, Starlow is just there. No excuse why she's here other than she's the guide for Mario and Luigi, which doesn't make much sense to me because she needed an excuse to be with them in the past two games, but now she's just kind of permanently acting as their guide for some reason. And she doesn't even do much in this game other than point out obvious facts. And when it comes to the bros moves, the trio of characters usually figures that out on their own without the help of Starlow. and Starlow's just translating to the player what they said to her. Probably the biggest moment she has in this game is when she's trying to hype Luigi up because you're in a haunted forest and we're just separated from the bros. And even this could be removed, and I don't think it would have impacted that much. So going into this, I knew that if Starlow was going to be in this game, it would be best for her to be playing a background character or just a reference who doesn't do much, or does something else other than focusing on helping Mario and Luigi. And that's exactly what they did with her. She's given the side role of helping Peach instead of the bros, telling Snoutlet that he's there and he's doing a good job so they don't need her. They even have a nice exchange afterwards if you decide to talk to Starlow. On top of that, she does also get a side quest where she goes to Bowser's castle wanting to check up on him after he's been beaten up by the bros. Bowser even called her Chippy, which is a fun callback. She also somehow stole his spikes without anyone knowing, which she then gives to the bros and can be used as a piece of equipment for combat. The combat of Mario and Luigi games has always been turn-based, and this game is no exception to that. Battles start off like normal when you touch an enemy or do something to initiate combat, like a first strike for extra damage. However, this game does something different than the past games in the series with combat, and it's when you go to use a normal jump or hammer attack. In the past games, the bros would attack on their own. However, in this game, the other bro will give an assist with their normal attack, dealing increased damage. And if one of the bros can't assist for some reason due to a status effect, they will still go back to attacking on their own. However, on top of that, you also have bros attacks, which these consume BP, however they do a lot of damage and can sometimes inflict status effect. Each bro gets 5 of these attacks, but both takes both bros to use. And if you know about bros attacks from the past games, you would know that slightly over half of these come from different games in the series past. However, they've been remixed, and even the ones that do almost exactly the same thing as the original have something new to make them really fun. And I'm also willing to give an exemption for the first one because ever since Partners in Time, the first bro attack has always been the shells. However, these attacks have also been remixed to where Red Shell is a single hit move that can even hit flying enemies, and the Green Shell does a sweeping attack that hits pretty much everything after hitting multiple times. However, if you want to use the original version of the attack, one of the Kooper's counterattacks you can do actually kind of mimics the original version of the shell attack from the past games. On top of that, there's a new mechanic in this game called Battle Plugs, which are here to replace the badges and cards of the past games. And to use it is pretty simple. You just select it, and as long as you have a outlet ready, you can insert the plug. However, you can only have so many active at once, depending on how many outlets you have. However, they can be swapped during your turn at will without using your turn, and you get a lot more of these throughout the game. Some examples of plugs are Iron Ball, Boom Attack, which does AoE, inflicting status effects through various plugs, and automatically using healing items, and so much more. You can even combine status effects together. For example, if you use the Kaboom Attack I mentioned earlier to make the effect AoE, and the Iron Ball, everything that was hit by the Kaboom Attack would also get hit by an Iron Ball, which can do absolutely tons of damage if you use it correctly, and can even wipe out whole groups of enemies that are on your level sometimes. However, after using them all up, they need to recharge, which will take a certain amount of turns. After winning a battle, you get items, gear, money, and EXP. After getting enough EXP, you level up and your stats increase, just like in past games. However, the battle spinner from the past games did not return, which unfortunately seems to have been taken from Paper Jam. However, after a certain amount of level ups, you will rank up, which let you choose different benefits depending on your rank, and you can choose whichever ones you want to fit your play style. However, note that you cannot get all of these, so choose wisely. Combat isn't the only thing in this game, though. When you're not in combat, you can explore the world in search of side quests, secrets, and more. For side quests, you're given a task to do, usually revolving around fetch quests, defeating certain enemies, or locating another NPC. However, there is a lot of variation in this, and even something that I would consider a side quest, although it does not show up in the side quest menu. On top of that, there are a lot of collectibles in this game as well. The main one you're going to want to go after is Sprite Bulbs, which can be found in nests and give you Luminade, which is going to be your main way to make the battle plugs mentioned earlier. One of the other two are Grampy Turnips, which are located across certain islands, and usually give some sort of rant when found and try to tell some sort of pun, which I really wasn't able to understand many of them. And after finding a certain amount of them, you can turn them into the Grampy Turnip to get certain rewards. The final main collectible are reefs, and this one is probably my favorite. You can find these while sailing around the sea and looking with your cannon. just like when you try to find an island. And after you spot it, you can look at the sea chart to get a description of the reef. And after collecting enough reefs, you can turn them into Issa Rock, who will give you rewards depending on how many reefs you have found and make statues of them across Shipshape Island. In the past games, Luigi was always right next to Mario when exploring, but in this game he's more disconnected, and this is partially due to Luigi logic, a new mechanic in this game where you can have Luigi do a bunch of tasks, which range from jumping on platforms to make new ones, breaking blocks, to squeezing through gates, and more. This can even be used in boss fights to stun them, and even inflict damage sometimes. The downside of this is when exploring, Luigi is AI controlled, which is something I don't mind most of the time, however it does cause some problems. For starters, Luigi does not have a hitbox to activate combat unless he is initiating a first strike, because avoiding encounters would be difficult with him. Furthermore, if he's left too far behind, he will call Mario over to him, which if you just completed a difficult parkour section, he might call you off and you have to redo the entire thing. The music of the Mario and Luigi series is something that's important to me because this is the series I grew up with, and it's had great music so far. And this game has good music as well, with each island having their own theme, even if some themes are reused for some of the islets. However, something felt off with the music to me in this game, and at first I thought it was because it was just on the Switch and had better speakers and overall better audio quality and stuff, but I did just recently play through the entire series with headphones on, so that shouldn't matter, and it turns out I was right. This is Yoko Shimomura, the composer of all of the Mario and Luigi games up till Paper Jam, and has also worked on games like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy, and even Xenoblade, one of my personal favorite series, even though she only worked on the first one. However, she did not work on Brothership. That role was instead given to Hideki Sakamoto, who despite having a shorter list of games worked on, still had some decent games under his belt with a couple of games from the Yakuza series, and even being the composer behind the main theme for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's Lifelight. And although I do like the music of this game, I'm going to prefer the music of the older Mario and Luigi games, possibly more because of nostalgia reasons, but I also think they're just better. Story is something I wanted to save for last, as I'll be going over most of the story, which means heavy spoilers. So you start off in the Mushroom Kingdom with Luigi running from bees, and Mario catches him before he falls off a cliff, which causes a portal to open up, sucking everyone nearby into Concordia and scattering them all across the land. While in the vortex, you can see Concordia before the land is destroyed, which is right before the bros are separated. Pretty quickly, Mario manages to meet back up with Luigi on Shipshape Island, where you're introduced to Connie and Snoutlet, where Connie informs you that the Uni Tree has been destroyed and the land's scattered into islands. So you set off to fix it, finding out that reaching the lighthouses on each island will allow you to connect them to Shipshape Island. Eventually, you manage to reach one of the great lighthouses and travel through it, finding a group called the Extinction Corp, who run off, leaving you to fight a boss. After beating the boss, you travel to the top of the lighthouse, which gives you access to the next sea. You do this with the other three lighthouses, along the way finding out more about Zorkit, who they don't really tell you much about, but he seems to be leading the Extinction Corps. You also find out about his plan to create something called Glorm, as well as the effects it has on people, making them kind of just want to be alone and pushing everyone away. Eventually, after clearing all four great lighthouses, you're able to make your way into Fortress Zorkit to end his plan. However, when confronting Zorkit, he ends up using all the great lighthouses to fire a ray of Glorm at your location to force you out of his fortress. where afterwards you end up on the first island Mario landed on after being separated by Luigi, but this time with Luigi. And it turns out this island is home to the Great Conductor, who's basically Concordia's guardian angel, similar to the Z-Keeper from Dream Team, and tells you that when the Uni-Tree was destroyed, he looked to otherworldly heroes who could possibly face off against whatever threat their land was up against, as well explaining the land's energy has affected Luigi, allowing him to use Luigi logic. He explained that Zorka is actually Connie's mentor Cosette, who's being controlled by Reclusa, for who now is trapped in an egg. With that, the brothers head back to Shipshape and prepare to head back to Fortress Zorkit to take down Zorkit, which after beating him, Cosette is free from Reclusa's control. However, Reclusa is able to break free, sending Lorm across the entire land and forcing the bros out of the fortress once more, as well as putting up a barrier around the fortress. On top of that, Reclusa creates the Sola Tree. With no way inside the tree, Cosette revealed that if you were to collect bonds in her watering can, you might be able to get enough energy to burst through the barrier, and after collecting enough of said bonds, the bros go Super Saiyan and shoot right through the barrier in order to face Reclusa in one final battle, where Reclusa fuses with the Sola Tree, where you need to enter the tree to take Reclusa down. Afterwards, the islands are all able to be reconnected, which creates enough energy to open a portal back to the Mushroom Kingdom, and the game ends with a shot of the new Uni-Tree given to the bros before returning home. And before I go on with this, there are probably some few things with the short story I missed and some things I skipped over, because this is all based on my memory, and every island has its own story or problems that I just would not have enough time to go over with this, so I'm sorry if I got something wrong here. However, overall, the story is incredible, on par with, if not better than, Bowser's Inside story. However, the progression at the beginning did feel kind of slow, as each island takes about an hour to get through if you're doing it blind. You don't get your first bros attack until about halfway through the first sea, and your hammer until after the second island, which I thought was a while until I looked back at the other games where it's usually around that long for you to get those skills anyway. This also seems to be the longest Mario and Luigi game in the series, with my first playthrough taking around 50 hours to beat, and to put that in perspective, the longest game before this was Dream Team, and in my most recent playthrough, it took about an estimate of 39 hours to beat. However, I don't have an exact time for this because that timer keeps ticking when the system is in sleep mode, and I did not know that, so I had to base that on the number of hours I streamed the game. So there is still a lot more stuff I want to talk about, however, I'm starting to run out of time and there's some things I can't easily fit into categories, so I'm going to see how much of it I can talk about here. And for starters, I put up a community post on YouTube a while ago asking if anyone would want me to mention anything specific about the game, and I got 2 comments on it. The first one is from Lisa VGG, saying that the Weeping Troopers will give you healing items, which is also a mechanic that Jail Goons use from Bowser's Inside story where they will heal Bowser if he frees them. And although I didn't notice this while I was playing Brothership, I did notice it later when I was watching Sugar Conroy's Let's Play of Bowser's Inside story where he fought the Jail Goons. The other comment was from creator Coley, and it was, no, this isn't that type of game. Another thing I found out after my playthrough was about the Battle Plug Seedle Eyes, which if you get an excellent on a jump or hammer attack, and this does use Status Explosion as well, enemies will sometimes turn into Seedles, which doesn't make much sense because they're the weakest enemy of the game and still give you the 2 EXP if you were to defeat them when you first find them, but this is actually the only way to spawn Golden Seedles, which give 4,000 EXP and 2,000 coins, which to my knowledge is the highest EXP value and coin value in the game. Next up, I want to talk about Reclusa for a little bit. I really like Reclusa and wish I had more time to talk about them, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm worried about this video getting too long. However, the character personality and design-wise feels like a mix of Dementio from Super Paper Mario, Jevil from Deltarune, and Mark from Kirby. Furthermore, I love how after you beat them, they go on saying, maybe you're right and Power of Friendship wins or something, and then just say it's a fake out. It's also the first final boss in the Mario and Luigi game that isn't Bowser, except for Partners in Time, but that's just because I don't consider this the final boss. Also, in the fake Mushroom Kingdom, I love that after you go through the castle, the bros can tell something's wrong, and they show this with the music by adding a little bit of a violin in there, and then the music slowly deteriorates over time until you're left with actually a pretty scary version of Peach's castle theme. Also, when you explore the final dungeon, you can see parts of Fortress Zorkit left around because that's what it originally was before Reclusa turned it into the Solitary. And I'm sure I could go on a lot longer about this, but I've probably gone on long enough already. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that in my opinion, this game is an 8 out of 10, and I'm sure there's probably a little bit of bias because this is the series I grew up with and was really excited to see it again. And there were definitely problems with it, but I managed to have a really enjoyable time with both the game and making this video. For now, if you enjoyed, maybe consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell, and I'll see you later. Bye!